whole life ambition. I didn't know if you could teach in church. Until I discovered that later. But like I said, I'm an architect as well. But today, the topic I've been given, time and chance, you obviously know that comes from the Bible. But it is not to be swift, it's not to be strong. Riches to men of understanding, and then favor to men of skill. But time and chance happen to them. I kind of prefer the New English Translation version of that. I'll skip everything else and head to the bottom where this is being at the right place at the right time. That's what I want to leverage on this morning. I'm going to tell you 3 lessons I learned from my mentor. His name is Dr. Tunde Adekola. He's a computer expert, an engineer, as well as a linguist. A remarkable man. I'll tell you of my first encounter with him many years ago. This was as far back in 1984, 85. I can't remember the date exactly. I used to run this factory with my mom called New Unity Industries, and we bought these machines from America, $250,000. Very expensive. We had to fly in people from America to come and install, from England to come and install it and help us to run it. And then we discovered something very interesting one day. That, every time we put on the generator, it will run. And every time we switched to NEPA, it wouldn't work. NEPA was much better at the time. We didn't know why until the engineers tried to make it work, and we couldn't get it to work. So they told us we needed to buy a special stabilizer, which is going to cost another $20,000, which we did. So the engineers went back and we bought this stabilizer and we got it back to Ibadan. Unfortunately for us, it got lost at the Lagos airport. So for 3 months we paid demurrage for something that wasn't our fault. Now I hope you're calculating $50,000, $20,000 for the stabilizer. Now we bring these engineers from Lagos who tell us they're going to charge us per hour to install the stabilizer. And then they go ahead and install it, and the machine is worse than the stabilizer than when we started. For one simple reason, the machine was designed to stabilize electricity between plus or minus 10%, while the Nigerian electricity fluctuates between plus or minus 25%. That was the end of it. And I met Dr. Adekola, who are in a particular place together. I said, I have this problem. So he came over, spent a day looking at the machine, and then got up and went to Ogupa Market or something and bought a local binary stabilizer for 2,000 naira and brought it back into the factory and connected the machine through this local binary stabilizer, and the machine started working. That's the problem we have in this country. We think money is always all our problem. Every time we have a problem, we want to pump in more money. We want to do things. And yet, this was a man at the right place at the right time, doing the right thing, using local solutions. We like to spend money. We throw money at everything. It doesn't work. Because we don't encourage innovation and creativity. Second story I want to tell you, on the same Dr. Adekola. I was about to start iCode, teach kids how to code, because we didn't understand what was behind it. Because I mean, if you look at the future of education and the future of technology, let me stop and say this about technology. Technology is not computers or iPhone. Technology is the ability to use, to do whatever you're doing faster and more efficiently. So in other words, if you could go to work for 15 minutes from your house, and you can now get to work in 12 minutes by something you apply, that's technology. But back here within technology is computers. Now, the only reason why computers are taking over and are leading tools in technology is because they make everything faster and better and more efficient. I hope you understand that. Yeah. But when you look at the future of technology and the future of education, you will find out that we're not ready for it. And so I met Dr. Adekola again to talk to him about helping me with iCode, and he said to me, the computer is the only thing man has ever made since the beginning of time where the person who designed and built it cannot tell you how to use it. You could decide to use your computer to monitor your house. You can use it to monitor your food. You can use it to do whatever you want it to do. You can count people in this hall. It can help you to register online. It can help you to conduct your business. It's the only thing man has ever made since the beginning of the time. When we made a knife, it was to cut. When we made a car, it was to move us from one place to the other. But the computer today is something you can make do anything. And we are not speaking the language of the computer. We can't communicate with the computer. And so we're not innovative about it. We're not even thinking that this technology, we're importing every single thing we're doing. Every software we're using. We're trying to touch the world, but we forget that this is the world we need to touch first. And I realized something very dear to me at that particular time. If we don't understand what's behind something, we can't make it work for us. Third lesson I learned from him. He said this to me. He said, for many years I worked as an engineer. He worked in very big projects like AIT and so on and so forth. That nobody noticed me. But the day I decided to apply my knowledge to the Yoruba language, I was driving home one day and I got a phone call, and it was from somebody from New York Times. And I didn't know they were from New York Times. They interviewed me for about 30 minutes. And a week later, a full page, a three-quarter page publication came out in the New York Times based on something I have done here. Let me ask you some silly questions. If I ask you to tell me a world-renowned Nigerian medical doctor, most of you wouldn't be able to name one. If I told you to tell me a world-renowned politician, world-renowned Nigerian politician, but if I ask you to name a world-renowned medical doctor, you won't be able to name one. But if I tell you right now, name a world-renowned Nigerian musician, you will shout fella. If I tell you to name a world-renowned Nigerian author, you will probably name Wale Soyinka and also and you probably name Asha as a musician as well. This is what Dr. Degbola said. What did they write that made them world-renowned? Was it another person's culture or another person's product? No, they wrote about us. They developed solutions for us. We celebrate Mandela, but everything he did was for South Africa. When are we going to start innovating for us? That young man whose video we watched a few minutes ago solved a problem in Kenya, and now he's on the world stage. What are we doing? We're not innovative, we're not creative, we're not even teaching it in our school. We're struggling. We can't even solve local problems. We must import every single solution. Look at where we're sitting. Everything here was brought from another country. It's time we become proud of who we are. Somebody said to me a few days ago that if you went to South Africa, and I don't know if it's true, but I know it's true in Nigeria, and if you get to a white man's house in South Africa, it's full of African products and wares on their walls and their curtains and their tables. But when you get to a black South African, it's full of white men's products. There's something missing somewhere. We are a unique people. We have a unique style to us. We have something about us that we need to start getting proud of again and begin to innovate and find solutions here for our people. I hope we can start this conversation from today. Be proud of what we do. We wear things. I'm wearing a suit, I'm wearing a shirt, I'm wearing a tie, a shoe, everything I'm putting on. Even my teeth. Repair. All for it. When are we going to come home and start working with what we have? When are we going to start teaching innovation and creativity to our kids? I tell my son, he's a beautiful artist. You can draw skyscrapers for New York, you can draw skyscrapers for the UK, but one day you'll find out that there's another UK boy who can draw it better. I'll close with a story about a professor. This professor was doing his master's in France. He's finished his master's in France, he has master's in France, he's studying for his PhD. And one day, the head of the department is driving home in France and he sees the light up in the professor's office. So he walks up to the guy. He says, you Africans, you work so hard. You try. But I tell you, sir, no matter how you have a PhD in French, you will never own the language like a Frenchman. Yes. And the professor got up and said, my goodness, he wasn't a professor at that time, he was a master's degree. What am I doing? He immediately resigned. Came back to Nigeria, started doing a master's in Yoruba. Today, He's a master, so he's a professor of Yoruba. And he translated Oleshenka's Ake back to Yoruba. And this is what happened. A few years later, he was invited to an international world conference. Guess who was sitting beside him? The head of the faculty at that particular time. They were both equals in the conference. He would never have been that man's equal speaking or teaching. Come home. Let's work.